朗还警告以色列跟这个美国的基地啊，你们要敢动，我开始轰炸你们。伊朗上一次啊，彻底去摧毁了美国跟这个以色列的它的空中优势。那伊朗领导礼拜六打电话给华盛顿，给川普，在谈核子武器，他的浓缩铀的谈判，美军根本没有能力去处理伊朗，死给你看。德黑兰什么不动如山，你知道吗？革命卫队现在非常忠诚的支持伊朗政府。
Where the IRGC fired ballistic missiles, killing innocent people. Look at the massive destruction of the civilian. This is not a military objective. It is a violation of international law. There isn't any military objective near this neighborhood. Only civilians. Ballistic missiles at civilians. Let that sink in.
Mohammed Al-Darbi is 12 years old. He has a message for the world.
يعطيكم العافية. احنا عندنا في غزة في شطحين، احنا 24 ساعة كل يوم بيقولوا لنا في مقاطير واحنا بنروح ما بنلاقيش المقاطير، احنا الرمل هذا ناكل في الشكل عنا، بدنا طعيم في الشكل، حرام عليكم ارحموا في الشكل عنا، الرمل بناكل بدل الخبز، حرام عليكم ارحموا الرمل بناكل بدل رغيف الخبز ريال حتى 20 شيكل رغيف الكبدة.
伊朗上一次啊，在12日战争当中啊，他被美国跟这个以色列的军队彻底去摧毁了他的空中优势。但是目前美国在所谓的中东地区的这个没有一艘航母，所有的航空母舰全部不在中东地区，然后目前只有6艘还是7艘的飞弹的一个战舰，所以美国没有军力在那边。大概在那个地区上有4万多个美军的部队，那打不了仗，4万多，你要做地面部队打仗的话，他不敢打。所以讲坦白话，以军事力量来看的话，美军没有力量能够去做地面作战。川普就吹牛啦，川普吹了一大堆啊。我看到一个那个《金融时报》在讲，川普说：“哎呀，我们要怎么样？我们要跟他要有什么？”川普讲被杀害的抗议人很多美国已经准备好营救。川普讲屁话，所以我要给台湾做参考，你知道吧？当老共打我们的时候呢，川普会对外怎么讲？我们准备好营救。然后呢，上礼拜五他讲要对伊朗的痛处实施沉重打击，嘴炮，你知道吧？然后呢，他伊朗领导礼拜六打电话给华盛顿，给川普，在谈核子武器，他的浓缩铀的谈判，跟这个抗议谈判一点关系都没有，指认一大堆。川普干什么？川普屁事没干，耍嘴皮子。然后网络被封锁了，现在伊朗把全部国家的网络全部封锁掉。他说我现在在打电话跟 Elon Musk， 跟马斯克商量，是不是把星链给他？全篇，这是 FT 的报道，全篇川普打嘴炮然后打嘴炮呢，完全没有。他现在的11月份他的福特号船的这个航母已经前往加勒比海了专注委内瑞拉的情势。所以呢，目前在1月5号有6艘军舰，包括3艘飞弹航空母舰。然后伊朗总统说，外面那些人是暴徒应该要消灭，你知道，要消灭暴徒知道吧？然后在这时候来讲的话，美军根本没有能力去处理伊朗，然后呢，伊朗的老百姓就活该倒霉，死给你看，就一大堆人死得很烂，你知道吧？就会变成这样子。那我现在要讲的意思是说，到底怎么回事？根本美军不可能介入伊朗。那伊朗，我有做一个简报给大家看一下。伊朗现在是什么？伊朗现在有这个，它叫做革命部队。伊朗的革命部队是伊朗的神权的护卫者。革命卫队现在非常忠诚的支持伊朗政府。革命卫队如果没有分裂，你这个伊朗美国人去都不敢去，好不好？现实的制约，美国在区域内的军属部署状况没有航空母舰嘛，没有兵力嘛，所以伊朗你看到没有？那是荷姆兹海峡。整个的兵力来讲的话是不够的嘛， 然后他也不敢打，他只有空中兵力，地面兵力不够，现在是在地面上在杀人嘛。美国红线有什么屁用？华盛顿回应一大堆啊，画了一大堆红线啊，结果死亡群众一直在死亡啊，那结果德黑兰什么不动如山，你知道吗？伊朗还警告以色列跟这个美国的基地啊，你们要敢动，我开始轰炸你们，所以根本就没有人在怕美国了，好不好？不要听新闻胡说八道。
Welcome back. We are joined today by Professor Sayed Mohammed Marandi, a professor from Tehran University and also a former advisor to Iran's nuclear negotiation team. So thank you for coming back on.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you very much for having me. It just shows how much I like your show because I went through a lot of trouble to get online. So the West is in no position to talk about open society. Iranian society is far more open than the West. In the West, they're carrying out a genocide. In Iran, they're opposing the genocide. In the West, they arrest people for opposing genocide in Palestine. In Palestine, not even, it's not even about their own country. What they've done to university students in the United States, the list goes on. I mean, the facade, the pretense that they were a free and open society, that's all gone. No one believes it. Western media has been looking away as the genocide's been going on. It's been pretending that this is the riots in Iran are peaceful and that millions of people were supporting it. Now, when we have millions of people on the streets in Tehran saying no to the West, they're all looking away again. That's not a free society. That's not a democratic society. That's not a free press. That's just a facade.
Regarding what you said about AOC, though, it reminded me a bit about a statement by the first president of Tanzania. He said that the United States is also a one-party state, but with typical American extravagance, they have two of them. So I thought that was a interesting quote. But my last question, though, is where, of course, this could be heading, because as we know, with all previous similar cases of trying to destabilize a country, the goal here is obviously not as altruistic as the rhetoric would suggest. Instead, we heard from Israel and some voices in the United States that war may be in the cards. Indeed, only yesterday, Lindsey Graham, the U.S. senator, suggested that they might strike Iran, last night or today. So that it's imminent, an attack on Iran. So bombing Iran to help its people. This is the rhetoric logic we're going with. But how likely do you see a war coming now?
Well, that was what this whole thing was about from the beginning. They manipulated the currency in order to create unhappiness, unrest, and then their highly trained teams, very well trained. The police have been saying that this is not like anything they've seen before. Their teams went out and systematically started destroying property and killing people. So this was all about creating, instability in Iran, or at least a narrative of instability in Iran, let's say, that would be more accurate, to legitimize strikes against the country. And that's why the CIA and Mossad and others are doing this. They're trying to create the justification for war. But Iran is prepared for war. And after the protests that we saw today, people are behind the scenes, just like during the 12-Day War. These people who carried out the riots, they were not with the people during the 12-Day War. They were opposed. They were on the other side. They're a small minority. But after today, if the United States strikes, these are the people who are going to be steadfast and standing firm when Iran strikes back. And Iran may strike first if Iran sees that there's some sort of imminent threat. That's a new policy. The Iranians have said that we may actually carry out, if we feel threatened, we can carry out a strike initially before they do. Because Trump has threatened Iran, and the Israeli regime has already carried out a blitzkrieg attack. So Iran today is much more prepared for war. Ironically, the last 10 days have turned out to strengthen Iran rather than weaken Iran. It's made the population united and angry at these rioters and terrorists and the Westerners behind them, because they've caused a lot of death and grief and damage. So I think that the whole objective from day one, which began with the currency manipulation, was to create an environment to justify war. And that's what Trump would do. Like, the Americans would bomb and kill tens of thousands of Iranians or hundreds of thousands of Iranians in an ideal world for them, to support these protesters. But in reality, what will happen is that Iran will hit back the Americans so hard and across the board that it will bring down the global economy, and it will bring down the U.S. economy. And some people in the West say, that's not going to happen. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Iran's capabilities defeated Israel. Anyone can go look at what Steve Bannon said the day after the ceasefire. He said that the real story is that Netanyahu and the Israeli regime were desperate. They were being hit hard and they needed the ceasefire during the last 4 days, whatever. Today, Iran is much more prepared, but more importantly, Iran's capabilities at hitting the Israeli regime, which are much more significant today than they were 7 months ago, that is a sideshow. Iran's real capabilities are not directed at the Israelis. They're directed at the Americans. They're directed at the Persian Gulf, the Indian Ocean, the other side of the Persian Gulf. Why? Because for 3 decades, the Americans have been saying all options are on the table. So Iran has for 3 decades been preparing itself for war with the United States. And so Iran has many underground drone and missile bases, short-range missiles, medium-range missiles, which are much more easy to move around and fire than these long-range missiles, and much more in number. So Iran can swiftly devastate anything that's out there, very swiftly. And under circumstances where the United States wants to wage war on Iran, Iran is not going to hold back. The Americans struck Iran once, and Iran destroyed key U.S. installations in Doha with 6 missiles that struck the base. The Americans denied it, if you recall, initially, but then the footage came out. If the Americans want to go for war, it's not going to be like that. The Iranians are going to go all out. And the Speaker of Parliament said that today, and he said it also in Parliament, I think, yesterday. So that, I think, was the objective. And I think that's what the Zionists and the neocons want. But ultimately, if it happens, it will destroy Western economies. It's not something that we want. It's not something that any sane person wants. But the States, the West, is in the hands of the Zionists. When AOC and Trump are saying the same thing, there's a reason for that. It's because the people who really have influence and power are telling them to say the same thing.
Yeah, I do get the impression as well that if they decide to go on another war against Iran, and it's looking increasingly likely, then it will play out very different this time. But you actually think as well that Iran could preempt?
Just one thing. Iraq, if there's war in Iran, Iran's allies in Iraq will take out Americans. And Iran's supporters in Azerbaijan, they will not remain quiet. The same is true in Yemen. This is not a war that the Americans can win. They don't have a chance in the world. And this is not the United States of 20 years ago. And this Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not even Vietnam. So, but again, the Zionists don't, because they're Israel first. They don't care about American interests. They want war because it's in the interest of the Israeli regime. They don't care about the results